Greetings, friends. David Marks here. Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Classic version 11 has just been released, and the big news this time is a huge develop module improvement called masking. Masking is a big change, and it's going to take a whole bunch of tutorials to cover all the new things that we can do now inside of Lightroom Classic. So in this introductory video, I'm going to focus on the fundamentals of masking only, and I'm going to try to keep things as simple as possible. Let me jump right into my Lightroom catalog and let's get started. The first thing that you need to understand is that masking is all about making local corrections inside of Lightroom Classic. By local corrections, I mean targeting changes to one region of your image without accidentally changing anything else. What you are looking at right now is an enhanced version of my original RAW file. Back when I shot this photo, I intentionally chose this spot because these rocks add interest to the bottom edge of this scene. But right now, I bet that your eyes are being drawn more to the background here than to these foreground elements. To fix this, to really draw your eyes in, I need to make these rocks brighter, more saturated, and perhaps even a little crisper than everything else in the frame. This is where masking comes into play. To target a change to these rocks only, I need to click here to open up Classic's new masking panel. When I open up this panel, a list of options will appear that includes some old familiar Lightroom tools plus a number of new choices. I promise that I will dig deeper into each of these tools in other videos, but for now, all that you need to know is that all of these options are here to help you precisely define the area that you want to change. It's not the most efficient tool in our arsenal, but I think that the simplest targeting tool for me to use throughout this tutorial is the brush tool, so let's start there. When I activate the brush, a separate panel will appear with a small black box. This panel is the first one we've seen in Lightroom that can float free, and although that's pretty neat, I'm going to drag it over here and dock it in at the top of all the others so that it lines up the way I'm used to with my other panels. When this panel is open, my goal is to tell the program exactly which parts of this image I want to change. And with the brush, I can literally paint over the areas of this photo where the changes should occur. For this demo, I'm going to set my brush up so it's a reasonable size, say about 10 pixels. I'm going to set the feather down to 0, the flow to 100, the density to 100, and I'm going to enable the auto mask option. I'm sure that these brush dynamic settings are a mystery for many of you, but for this simple demo, these will work just fine. Next, I'm going to enable the show overlay option up here at the bottom of the masking panel. Now, I'm going to click down here on the toolbar at the bottom of my screen and set the show edit pins option to always. I will also set the overlay mode to the color overlay option. Now, I can click and drag with the mouse to paint over these rocks. Wherever I paint, red will appear over top of my image, but don't worry. I'm not actually changing the color of these rocks or anything like that. The red here, it appears in the areas where I have painted, and this is telling me which parts of the photo I'm about to change. For this demo, I'm just going to paint fast and sloppy over all 5 of these rocks. Once I've painted roughly around the areas that I want to change, I can come back over here to the masking panel and I can turn the show overlay feature off. Now, it's time to create the actual changes that I want to add emphasis into these rocks. To do that, I'm going to bump up the exposure, the contrast, the texture, the clarity, and the saturation. I've probably overdone things, but watch what happens when I click on this little eyeball symbol up here at the right edge of the masking panel. This is the way that the image looked before I made any changes to these rocks, and this is after. At this point, if I think that my changes are too strong, then I can go back and adjust any of these sliders. I must add here that since image editing in Classic is always non-destructive, that I can adjust any of these sliders today, tomorrow, or years from now if I think that the changes I'm making are too strong or not strong enough. Likewise, if I'm unhappy with where I've painted on this image, then I could either paint more with the brush tool to include additional parts of the image in this mask, or I could switch to the erase brush. With the erase brush active, I can paint away an area that I don't want to change. Whenever I'm cleaning up a mask, I find it really helpful to turn the Show Overlay option back on again. With this on, it's much easier to see the parts of this image that are or are not going to be affected by this mask. For today's demo, I'm not going to worry about precision mask cleanup, but if I were really working on this image, then I would slow down, zoom in, and pay a lot more attention to the edges of this mask. Bigger picture though, the red colored overlay that we are seeing right now is just one representation of the mask, but there are other ways to view our targeting system too. Perhaps the most complex, but the one that really gets at the heart of today's lesson, lives down here at the very bottom of the Overlay Mode flyout menu. Oh, before I forget, here's a quick tip. If you can't find this whole bar at the bottom of your screen, then try pressing the letter T on your keyboard to show the toolbar. Hiding the toolbar away by mistake is a common frustration in Classic, and it's something that has tripped up new users for many, many years. Anyway, at the bottom of this menu, there's an option that says white on black. When I activate this overlay mode, we can truly see the mask that we have been building using Adobe Photoshop's visual language. When you're looking at a mask like this, you need to understand that in Photoshop's vocabulary, white and black are symbolic colors. On a mask, the white areas reveal the change that this layer makes, and the black areas block those changes away. A common refrain is that on a mask, that the white areas reveal and the black areas conceal the changes that this layer calls for. If I toggle the Show Overlay button on and off again, perhaps this will make more sense. The white parts of this mask line up with the rocks in my image, and the black covers over everything else. If it helps, let me show you one more overlay mode. This time, I'll pick the image on black, and I'll turn on Show Overlay again, so that you can really see that the mask is our targeting system. This mask isolates all of the changes that I set for this layer to the rocks, and it doesn't allow that boost in contrast or clarity or saturation to change anything else. I think that what we've covered so far is enough to get you started with the essential concepts that are at the heart of the new masking panel. Obviously, there's a lot more to learn here, but before you go any deeper down this rabbit hole, I urge you to repeat that mantra about white and black 10,000 times. In other videos, I'll dig deeper into all of these other tools and offer it lots of advice on mask cleanup. But none of those additional details are nearly as important as the concept that white and black on a mask are the way that we can target changes to a specific region inside of Lightroom Classic. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you learned something today, then please hit the subscribe button and leave us a like or a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in our next tutorial.